You know, we spend almost all of our time indoors, but we rarely think about the complex, totally invisible world that's working around the clock to keep us comfortable. I'm talking about these hidden highways, a network of ducts tucked away inside our walls and ceilings. Today, we're going to peel back the drywall and take a look at the fascinating science behind HVAC duct design.
Have you ever just sat in a room and noticed that gentle, quiet stream of air coming from a vent? Well, that doesn't happen by chance. It's actually the end result of a super carefully calculated system, a balancing act of physics and engineering that's designed to work so well, you don't even know it's there.
And this really gets to the heart of the challenge. It's this constant trade-off. If you make the ducts too small, you get a noisy system and a fan that's working way too hard. But if you make them too big, you're just wasting money on steel and chewing up valuable space. The goal isn't to find one right answer, it's about finding the right size solution for that specific building.
So let's really dig into this balancing act. What exactly happens when an engineer gets it wrong?
Well, it's a really delicate balance, and there are big consequences on both sides. On one hand, if your ducts are too small, you're basically trying to shove a whole bunch of air through a tiny straw. That creates super high airspeed, which means noise, that annoying whoosh sound. It also puts a huge strain on the fan, and your energy bill goes through the roof. But on the other hand, if you go way too big, the air just kind of lazily drifts along. You spent a ton of money on extra sheet metal and lost precious ceiling height for basically no reason. The sweet spot is right there in the middle.
So how do engineers find that sweet spot? Well, they rely on a few golden rules of physics. You can think of these as the official rules of the road for air as it travels through a duct.
And it really all comes down to these three key variables. First up, you've got Q, for airflow. That's simply the amount of air you need to get to a room. Then there's V, for velocity. That's how fast the air is moving. And finally, you have delta P, which stands for pressure loss. Now that's just a fancy engineering term for friction. Every single pipe, every bend, it all creates resistance that the fan has to push against.
And here's the beautiful part. All three of those variables are linked together by one incredibly simple and powerful formula. The continuity equation. Q equals A times V. That means the airflow is just the duct's area multiplied by the air's velocity. And here's the thing you absolutely have to remember. You can't change one of these without affecting the others. If you shrink the duct's area, the velocity has to speed up to move the same amount of air. It's a fundamental law. Okay, so with these rules in their back pocket, engineers have come up with a few different strategies, or, design philosophies for getting the job done. It's not just about crunching numbers, it's about picking the right approach for the project.
There are 4 common methods engineers use to solve this puzzle. We're going to focus on the 2 you see most often, the velocity limit method and the equal friction method.
The velocity limit method is, well, exactly what it sounds like. It's the speed limit approach. You, as the designer, decide on a maximum speed for the air based on how quiet the space needs to be. So, for a library, you'd want a really low, slow speed limit, right? But for a noisy industrial warehouse, you could let it rip. You set the speed limit, and the math tells you exactly what size duct you need to stay below it. Now, the equal friction method is a little different. Think of this one as setting the difficulty level. Instead of capping the speed, you set a target for how much friction or pressure you're willing to lose for every meter of duct. A really common target is about 0.8 pascals per meter. This approach is fantastic for creating systems that are naturally balanced because you're managing the resistance in a really consistent way from start to finish. All right, so that's all the theory. But how does this actually go from a drawing on a blueprint to a real-life blower moving air? Let's walk through a quick example to see how all these pieces come together. So here's our mission. We're going to design a simple little duct system with just 3 parts. We'll use the equal friction method, and we'll set our target difficulty level to that 0.8 pascals per meter we just talked about.
Okay, we run the numbers. The first segment, S1, carries the most air, so it needs a duct that's exactly 538 millimeters in diameter. Then the air splits off, so S2 needs 444 millimeters, and the last part needs 381. These are the mathematically perfect ideal sizes to hit our target. Seems easy enough, right? Ah, but not so fast.
And here, this is the moment where theory crashes into reality. You can't just pick up the phone and order a 538 millimeter duct. It doesn't exist. Fabricators make standard off-the-shelf sizes. So the engineer has to take their perfect answer and snap it to the closest size they can actually buy. So we snap to reality. Our 538 millimeter duct becomes a standard 560. The 444 becomes a 450, and the 381 becomes a 400. Now remember that continuity equation? Because we changed the area, the actual velocity and the actual pressure loss for each segment have changed too. Our system is no longer perfectly at 0.8 pascals per meter, but the key is now it's buildable, and we have the real pressure loss for each and every piece.
Now we can take all those individual little pressure loss numbers and add them up to find the one final absolutely critical number that's going to determine the heart of the entire system, the fan. First, we add up the real-world pressure losses from our 3 duct segments. We do the math, and that gives us a total friction loss from just the ductwork of about 194 pascals. But hold on, that's only part of the story. The fan isn't just fighting the friction from the pipes, it also has to shove all that air through all the other equipment in the system.
And in this system, that equipment includes things like filters and cooling coils, and they add another 235 pascals of resistance to the pile.
So, finally, we add the ductwork loss to the equipment loss. 194 plus 235 gives us our grand total, 429 pascals. Now this final number has a very important name. It's called the external static pressure, or ESP. It is the grand total of all the resistance that the fan has to overcome. And this is the number an engineer takes to a catalog to pick out the perfect fan for the job. So there you have it. We started with a simple goal, a quiet breeze from a vent, and it took us on a journey through physics, real-world trade-offs, and some really careful calculations. It's this whole hidden world of engineering that makes our buildings livable. So maybe the next time you're in a room that feels just right, you'll think about those invisible highways of perfectly balanced air that are flowing all around you.